forward into the upright position. You can see that cut number 2 is now complete. Here's the top of cut number 1, and we've removed all of the excess solar horn from beneath our line number 2. This should have had the effect of rotating the foot down at the toe, thereby relieving pressure from the back end of the pedal bone. The object is to transmit the weight of the cow directly down the leg, through the bone and onto the centre of the pedal bone. I've also carried out cut number 2 on this foot, and the white line has reappeared, running around the wall to the toe and back along the axial wall along to this point. You'll notice that here we have some flaking horn. This is thought to be an effect of laminitis, where correct horn formation has been interrupted. Cut number 3 consists of removing this ledge of solar horn such that the central sole area, the sole ulcer area, is no longer a weight-bearing surface, and weight is transferred to the wall at this point and at this point, thus removing weight from here and from here. I've now removed this ledge of solar horn so that weight has been transferred to the wall at this point and at this point. And I can in fact put my pointer across the hooves to show that weight is no longer taken on the central solar area. Cut number 4 consists of pairing the 2 claws so they become equal in weight bearing. Often the lateral claw in hind feet grossly overgrows, and interestingly enough it's the medial or inner claw on front feet which grossly overgrows. These 2 claws are in fact reasonably even in size, so let's go back to the farm and see if we can find some better specimens. This is Christine Freeman bringing in a group for foot trimming. I'm going to demonstrate the basics of the technique on 1 or 2 and then hopefully persuade Christine to try some trimming herself. Some of these feet are quite badly overgrown and really should have been trimmed a bit sooner. No doubt we've all seen similar cases though. When the toe no longer makes contact with the ground, as in this case, there's nothing to wear away the overgrowth, so elongation can continue unabated. Look how uncomfortable she is walking way back on her heels. Another example, seen here in the milking parlour, has an overgrown outer claw with the hoof wall curving under and thereby destabilising the sole. It would probably take 2 or 3 foot trimming sessions to get these feet back to normal. The cow I'm going to use as a demonstration certainly isn't as bad as any of these. There is considerable overgrowth at the toe, however, producing a shallow angle of the front wall, dropped heels, and a toe which doesn't touch the ground while she's walking. Look how that foot there is turned backwards. You see, now because it's rotated backwards, it means that the pedal bone at the back end of the pedal bone will be pinching the corium over the sole ulcer site. Now we may or may not find an ulcer there, but I bet that she'll be sore on those feet. If we were to watch her walk, she would probably just creep along. Simply because the foot is overgrown and the foot is out of shape. You imagine yourself walking along with your toes in the air and walking on your heels all the time. It would be pretty uncomfortable, and she's the same. Consequently, loss of weight, reduced yield, maybe effect on fertility and so on. Anyway, let's get her in the crush and have a look at her and see if we can do anything to improve her. Cows don't particularly like being handled, and especially having their feet lifted. One of the best ways of preventing them slipping and injuring themselves is to spread sand over surfaces. It produces excellent friction. Let's now have a look at the equipment we use. There's a whole range of equipment you can use for feet, but I use a basic hoof knife, a set of hoof clippers, and for tidying up at the end, a rasp, or you can use a surform or something like that. If I'm doing a lot of feet, I would certainly wear a pair of gloves. That protects your hands and gives you a bit of extra strength as well. Maybe I won't today.
Is this a double-sided knife?
Yeah, it is. You've got a large cutting blade on one side, a small cutting blade on the other. I find them very good because it gives you the extra bit of manoeuvrability. I do a few strokes forward, a few strokes backward, and I find you can shape the foot with them better. Right, come on then, let's get her foot up and get started.
Okay, good.
Ready?
Yep.
Up we go. Come on, girl. Lift the right hop right up to that. There, that's good. Right, you wrap yours around. Good. It's right up there, nice and secure. I think it is important that the leg is secure, both of course from your own safety and for the safety of the cow. Because if she feels uncomfortable, then she's more likely to wriggle around and could do herself a nasty like that. The advantage of ropes, of course, is that you can release them quite quickly. Some crushes have a ratchet mechanism on the top, and you can hoist the foot up on a ratchet. We'll wash the foot off. You can either wash it off with soap and water. What some people do is to just wipe it off with shavings or sawdust. And that has advantages, well, considerable advantages in the winter when it's freezing cold and you want to protect your hands of it. What we're going to try and do in terms of foot trimming is to restore the foot to its correct weight-bearing surfaces, the correct angles and that sort of thing. So the correct weight-bearing surface will be the heel there, okay? And then the wall and part of the sole running around to the toe and back, just back to there. And that little bit there, it certainly is quite important. We don't want weight here or here because that's a sole ulcer area. I think you've seen the ulcers in your own cows at home, haven't you?
That's right.
Right. So what we're going to do then is to trim, is to get those claws back to a normal shape. And typically for hind feet, you can see it's the outer claw which is so much bigger than the inner claw. You can see that there's the heel area there. Yeah, that's right. And that bit of tissue there is underrun. Now that's the beginning of heel necrosis. And you see this soft area there? That's like that. Well, that we would call that heel necrosis or slurry heel. And because that's missing, then already the cow's weight-bearing surfaces are deformed. Because that should be a weight-bearing surface. It's no longer there, and of course she'll sink down onto her heels as a result of it being missing.
When you say missing, that should have claw all over here.
Yeah, so you should have an area of horn which covers over that part of the heel. Something like that. That's almost intact, other than the fissure there. So we're starting to get necrosis at that point. Right, so this is cut number 1. We're going to cut the toe off to the right length. Well, that's cut the inner claw, all right?
Yeah.
And we want the outer claw to be the same length, so we can put our clippers on again. We can put our clippers on again and cut the outer claw to an equivalent length.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're actually left there, you see, with a square-ended toe. We can in fact see the white line, which is the junction of the wall and the sole, running down through there. Now what our cut number 2 now is going to be the removal of this sole here in the toe, so that square end disappears. And it would be sort of like drawing an imaginary line from here around the side of the foot back to the heel. And that will remove horn from the front and therefore bring the hoof more back up into the upright position.
Will we do that on this claw as well?
Yeah, do both of them so that we can actually see the white line running back around the corner. When I take the surface of the foot off in a minute, you'll be able to see the white line coming to here, disappearing and going back up to there.
Yep.
I find it's easiest to use the hoof knife with both hands on it like that, and actually work almost like it from my shoulders, so push down through. I also find it easier to do nice straight strokes with the knife, like that, because it gives you a clear surface. If you try using the point, as on there, or like that, you'll end up with a much rougher area over the surface of the foot. Plus the fact, of course, that a good stroke like that is taking off a nice little horn on one occasion.
So you're taking off more this side?
Yes, this outer claw is quite a bit bigger. And if we trim down to the toe down to there, I do like to have a nice clean working surface. You see the white line running down the outside wall here, just disappears on the toe and then comes back there. And this part of the wall here is very, very important for weight bearing, because if we remove that, the whole claw could rotate over right? And you'd end up with a curled corkscrew toe like you see in a proportion